welcome to my channel. What an exciting day. Today we finished the pinion repivoting job. I just put a video out like yesterday on this job, and it was freaking hard, okay? Please subscribe to my channel, share it amongst your friends, and if you want to get a hold of me, jdwatchservice@gmail.com. But summer's coming, so I'm not going to do much watch work in the summertime, so be advised. I can give you advice though. Here's a little pinion, there's the escapement. I'm just moving this around so it doesn't disappear on me. And I had to replace the top pivot, tried to put it all together again and realized that, whoa, the bottom pivot's also screwed. And here I'm holding it, looking at the bottom going, oh my God, the job's not done yet. I was cleaning the plate on the upper right hand side when I realized that, hey, this jewel hole is not as big as that big huge thing I thought was the pivot on the bottom. It was the shaft. And so then I quickly realized that, hey, you got to drill another hole into a shaft. And I was like, this is fun. This is fun. I don't care who you are. This is fun. So I said, all right, how am I going to do this without breaking another drill bit inside? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, there's the hole I started. It turned out to be pretty good until I went part way in and the drill jammed up and it broke off. Then I went to my microscope and started a picking. There's a picture of the jewel hole, and there's a picture of the shaft on the bottom of the pinion, and the hole I drilled wasn't ready yet. I spent like an hour and a half under the microscope trying to clean that hole out. What I did was go to a bigger drill bit and started drilling the hole, because I knew I could put a bigger pivot in there and then shove that piece of blued steel in there and then work it down until it was the pivot size. There I am drilling that hole again. Oh my God. And this is drilling the hole into the 4 over with the previous drill bit, the small one, just before I broke it off. And then finally, success! I was able to drill that hole. It's a bit bigger, as you can see, than the last one was. But success! I was pretty impressed. I was able to do it, and I didn't break the bit off, and I got that hole deep enough to be able to take that piece of blued steel. And that's exactly what I did, and I shoved that piece of blued steel in. But first, I had to work that piece of metal down until I could actually press fit the end of that shaft in for the new pivot. And I press fit it, and then I used a stake from a staking set on the end on the right hand side, and I went tap, 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 tap to stake that in, and I also used some Loctite. Then I took my very fine gravers and I graved and graved and graved and graved down that end part until it was 0.2 millimeters on the end. And then I had to snap that baby off, and actually it fell down, it fell off. Big chance of breaking the pivot on the other side when that happens, so that was kind of stupid. My recommendation is you put a chunk of Rodico. Yes, Rodico on the end of that pivot. You do this. Put that Rodico on the pivot, and that way if it falls, it doesn't break the pivot, it just bounces on the Rodico. This is what I normally do, but I didn't think the damn thing would fall off. So I had to do that, and then I had to part that piece. That's what it's called parting the piece from the lathe and where it's installed. Once I parted the piece, I flipped it around to expose the pivot on the right hand side, as you can see, and I started working that pivot with both a pivot file and a stone, and I worked it and worked it and worked it and worked it until I got it to the right size. And then after I got it to the right size, I burnished it with my burnisher. I did some burnishing, and that's a piece of metal. It's smooth. It's basically a piece of metal that doesn't look like a file. It looks like just a plain piece of steel, and then there's little lines on it like that, little lines, and then you go ooh, like this was as you burnish that pivot, and you spin it, and it hardens the pivot. As you're doing that, it also hardens the pivot, which is nice. You don't want it too hard because it'll crack, but it hardens it. You do this with pivots on balance staffs as well. And there's the final product. You can see the new pivot on the top, you can see the new pivot on the bottom, and I press fit this so it's all ready to reassemble in the carriage movement to see if this thing worked perfectly and everything was the right size. It's called depthing. So if you got a lot of depth, like deep, if you're a deep person, you could do depthing, right? And there it is, all assembled back up. That was see the little pivot sticking up? It didn't matter that it was sticking up. And on the bottom, I had it sticking out the other side too. So I did not have to worry about it because there was no cap jewel on this baby. No cap jewel. Who makes watches without cap jewels? I don't know. This was the old days. I also had to make sure that pallet fork pivot was through the jewel hole, and as you can see in that photo over there on the right hand side, that pivot is going right through that jewel, and the pivot I made for the escapement is going through there as well. What a beautiful thing, man. What a beautiful thing. Then as I installed the balance cock, I had to make sure that that upper jewel on the thingamajobby rigid... So basically I took the cap jewel off the upper balance staff. You can see the cap jewel there. I took that off, oiled it, and then put it all back together. And this is a... Well, and this is a quick video of it working. And you notice in this video the pallet fork is being caught by the impulse jewel, or is it the other way around? No, the impulse jewel is feeding into the mouth of the pallet fork and it's swinging back and forth. Now this jobby-do thingamajobby doohickey won't work until there's energy provided to the pinion of the escapement on the bottom. And there's a beautiful picture of the whole thing assembled. It works really well, very well assembled. And the pivots on the top and the bottom will be working just fine. I used glue on the bottom pivot when I poked that baby in, and this time I decided to use Loctite because there's no way that pivot will come out. The bottom pivot I was worried about gravity, even though it probably wouldn't come out either because it's friction fit with friggin' glue, so that's going to stay in forever. But the top pivot I wasn't too worried about because I had a really snug fit on that baby, and I used some Loctite. I used Loctite medium, I didn't use Loctite hard, but it doesn't matter. It's going to stay in there forever anyway. And I made sure both pivots are burnished perfectly so they're nice and smooth like glass. And I did take my little finger and go ee-oo on that as I was assembling it to make sure I had enough looseness. So my side shake on there is minimal but good. So I didn't have to worry about my up and down shake, just my side shake. This is an idea of what side shake is. If you've got a pivot and my head was a pivot and it would be side shaking. If this were a jewel and this was a jewel hole, this is side shake. End shake is when there's a cap on here, just like my hat, and you're like this. So you don't want too much end shake. You want it just to touch the cap, and you don't want too little side shake so it does that. You want just enough side shake so it's in there nice and snug. So there it is. I'm going to look down for a second so I can show you it moving, right? I'll just move it a little bit, and you can see the pallet fork following the impulse jewel. And this thing here, this jobby-do thingamajobby hickey is nice and loose. See? Look at that. And if I do this with this, you can see the pallet fork moving back and forth. So, and there's no energy on it, but look how nicely it's riding. So there you go. This thing should work like a charm. So thanks for tuning into my channel, and next time we'll have even more fun as I fix more stuff.